I asked him, I was like, what happened? Like, I'm not saying this, I told him not in a negative way, but what was the what was the reason for the changes between season 2 and 3?
We would be honored if you would join us.
It was very fucking brief. He wasn't like sitting down or anything. Friends were out, me and my friends were drinking, and I needed to sober up because I was the designated driver and shit. So
Hold on. I just want to stop
You
your
didn't tell me
story.
this.
Me and my friends were out drinking, and I needed to sober up because I was the DD. That's what you said, right?
Was it really Jon Favreau, or was it?
Yeah, no.
You're Jon Favreau.
Just looked
Guys,
like
it's Jon Favreau.
No, it was. He was. So I was waiting for my order, and I looked over, and I recognized him, but I'm like, I don't fucking talk to him. I'm like, oh, I gotta ask him about fucking Star Wars because of all the shit that's going on. But I'm like, he's not gonna say a lot. Like he there's no way. So I walked up to him and I was like, okay. I was like, I had a question, like, so what was the reason why Grogu was taken away from Luke again just so suddenly? Was it like, you're gonna use him in the Rey movie or what? And he kind of just like smirked at me. He's like, I can't say anything about that. Like, but he's making this look at me like, yeah, I obviously think that's gonna happen. I asked him, I was like, what happened? Like, I'm not saying this, I told him not in a negative way, but what was the reason for the changes between season 2 and 3? I noticed it was obviously about Din Djarin, and it became more about Bo and how they kind of just separated away from that. And he said, well, in the first 2 seasons, he's like, we had a little bit more creative control. There were a few company changes that really had an effect on our overall creative control in the story. And when he told me that, I was thinking to myself, like, well, at that time, I know Kathleen Kennedy and her like DEI story group were focused on something called Children of Blood and Bone. You guys remember when Favreau and there was like this weird rumor going around that Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy had a problem with each other, or there was some kind of tension there behind the scenes. I think it was because they might have started messing with his story that he originally had for season 3, which makes sense because season 3 was very Kathleen Kennedy-esque.
Weird.
I feel like, so the way from my understanding at Lucasfilm is that doesn't matter what kind of, who you are, you write a story, you write a script, everything has to go through a DEI check. Like, it's literally like a filter that they have. From my understanding, that the reason why things keep happening the way they do is because they have that DEI stuff in place. I mean, obviously, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We all kind of know that they have stuff like that, but everything has to go through it. So when he told me that those changes happened, and it was around the time that Bob Chapek was gone and Bob Iger came back in, it made perfect sense as to why maybe Bob Iger put Kathleen Kennedy back on Star Wars duty instead of Children of Blood and Bone. I think that's what it's called. He says, obviously I can't say much, but we see all the criticisms and stuff. We see everything. We care. We're just doing with what we can. So I honestly feel like there's people that actually do work for Lucasfilm that really see all this stuff, but obviously they're kind of probably shamed for even trying to say anything or do anything.
Of course. No, I know for a fact that I know from friends of mine that are very close with a lot of these guys. There's a full like team. There's like a room of people that look over all of the social media stuff of every one of us, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, or whatever. They're scanning everything. It's probably some of them watching this stream. So they want to see what people are saying. They want to see what's going on. They want to see what the consensus is of everybody, and who to blacklist, who not to, who to allow in, and basically get reports. They're all about data.
Right.
It's all about data reports. So, yeah.
Favreau told you was basically that, well, there's been some changes at the company lately, and I can't really go into anything, but that might be why. So we hear you guys and we hear your complaints. That's what he said.
Essentially, yeah. And then he also, because I asked him, I told him, like, we feel like a lot of us, it's like, it's not, we get labeled as all of these isms and ists, and
you tell him, you told him
we're not. Yeah, I told him straight up. He's like, a lot of us don't fall in line with those words, those names that people like to call us, just because we criticize 1 or 2 or 3 characters or how it's written. I really hope, I told him, like, I really hope that this stuff doesn't really, this negative stuff that happens on social media, or if there's anybody on the inside that kind of supports the opposite side of the fandom that kind of pushes, which theory, it happens. That
we think we all here know pretty good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't want, I told him, like, I don't want I don't want people at Lucasfilm thinking that we're some kind of fucking crazy ass fucking hateful people. We just want the Star Wars that we all knew, that we all grew up with, that we carried for years. You know, like we talked about the other day on Theory Talks. It's like, you know, there are, yeah, Star Wars is for everybody, but there's no way in hell that you're not going to tell me that there's certain people that care about it more than others. It's the truth, and I'm not afraid to say that. It's
Well, for sure, yeah. I mean, absolutely. But that's kind of like the issue in today's world is you have like newcomers, you know, these young whippersnappers, so to speak, come in and they're kind of like,
yeah,
I know it better than you. It's like, what are you talking about?
you just got
started-
here.
You just got here. We've been here for decades.
Right.
You know, it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.